Welcome, beautiful people, to Camp Koji. My name is Joel, and thank you for joining me as I break down the biggest gaming news from the week that was on the only podcast you will ever need. Now, on today's show, we're going to talk about Splitgate 2, and I'm going to talk about Concord's open beta. I was able to give it a try over the weekend. I'm going to give my thoughts on it. But first, I want to go over a few Xbox stories, starting with this one. Paramount Plus has canceled the Halo TV series after just 2 seasons. Now, a source tells THR that Amblin, Xbox, and 343 Industries will still attempt to shop the series around. Now, I don't think this is a complete surprise. I think it's a bit of a surprise because Paramount had told us through official channels that the first season, I believe it was one of their most watched shows. But to me, this show has always looked very, very expensive. So it's at the same time, it's actually not really that much of a surprise. They probably had to pull in a lot of viewers for this to make sense for them to continue. I don't think shopping it around makes any sense from the perspective of a streamer picking it up. You know, Netflix sometimes does that where, you know, they'll pick up a show that was canceled and they'll find a second life over on Netflix. I personally don't think this would be worth it. I just feel like it's too expensive to pick something like this up. I think Xbox should just, you know, let it go, to be honest, and learn from this. You know, there are other IP that they have access to, and maybe at some point down the line, I could see a reboot for this happening. Maybe now focus more efforts on making that Gears of War live action something that's unforgettable. Unlike this show, which, you know, I know some people liked it. I personally felt it was forgettable. Now, moving on, the FTC has filed a new letter in its ongoing appeal of Microsoft's Activision acquisition, addressing Xbox's recent changes and price increase to Game Pass that happened not too long ago. Now, this is kind of long. I'm going to read a big string of quotes from the FTC, followed by Microsoft's response, so buckle in. So, FTC writes in part, quote, Microsoft is discontinuing its $10.99 a month console Game Pass product. Users of that product must pay 81% more to switch to Game Pass Ultimate. For consumers unwilling to pay 81% more, Microsoft is introducing a degraded product, Game Pass Standard, at $14.99 a month. This product costs 36% more than console Game Pass and withholds day one releases. Product degradation, removing the most valuable games from Microsoft's new service, combined with price increases for existing users, is exactly the sort of consumer harm from the merger the FTC has alleged. Now, Microsoft responded to the letter by saying, quote, it is wrong to call this Xbox Game Pass Standard a degraded version of the discontinued Game Pass for console offering. That discontinued product did not offer multiplayer functionality, which had to be purchased separately for an additional $9.99 a month, making the total cost $20.98 a month. While Game Pass Ultimate's price will increase from $16.99 to $19.99 a month, the service will offer more value through many new games available day and date. Among them is the upcoming release of Call of Duty, which has never before been available on a subscription day and date. While the FTC has now tried to shift focus to its alleged subscription market, its letter does not map onto its arguments below. Setting aside that it is common for businesses to change service offerings over time, the FTC's case in all of its alleged markets has always been premised on vertical foreclosure, i.e. that Microsoft would withhold Call of Duty from rivals and therefore harm competition. But even in the alleged subscription market, Call of Duty is not being withheld from anyone who wants it. And there remains no evidence anywhere of harm to competition. Sony's subscription service continues to thrive, even as they put few new games into their subscription day and date, unlike Microsoft. The transaction thus continues to benefit competition and consumers, exactly what the district court correctly found. Now, sorry, like I said, that was a mouthful. I know it was a lot. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on these next two topics. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about Concord. But I wanted to go over a few of these points. Number one, calling Game Pass Standard a degraded product, understandable because day one has sort of been so attached to Game Pass. But I think it's a little bit early to call it degraded because we don't actually exactly know what that looks like. I'm sure that not every single Game Pass game is going to be on there because when you create these contracts and deals, there are certain guarantees, or you're telling these companies like, yeah, your game's going to be there available day one. And that day one promise was across every single tier that doesn't exist anymore, right? Now there's a tier that doesn't have access to something like that. Now, when Xbox says that, oh, well, it's not the graded version because we added multiplayer, lies, okay? I feel like when you create a service and you're creating multiple tiers, it's the purpose of multiple tiers, to me, is to cater to different audiences. And when you think about the tier of console, it filled a very necessary hole, which is people who did not play multiplayer games. I think that's a healthy enough chunk of your audience where there's a lot of value in something like that. I'm one of those people. If I'm playing an online game, of course I'm playing on PC because PC doesn't charge me extra to play online. But on top of that, I'm sure there are a lot of other gamers that don't play multiplayer on consoles. So to take that out and then tell me, well, we added multiplayer, so yeah, the price went up, but it's a better product. Wrong. That's just plain wrong. Now, with them talking about the increase from $17 to $20, I will say that I think that's a fair increase. I think that it's still worth the $20. If you are a well-rounded gamer, I think you still get your month's worth. I think the price of the servers would have gone up regardless. I don't think that the Activision Blizzard purchase affected this. I think it just gave them more of an incentive, with adding Call of Duty. But this would have been $20 at the end of this year, regardless, even if they bought Activision or didn't. Microsoft, I believe, is correct in talking about they're making Call of Duty more available. They made Call of Duty feature parity. Chances are very likely that we're going to see Call of Duty showing up in the new Nintendo Switch whenever that happens next year. So I think they did keep to that promise. I think they're keeping to it currently. And I do agree with Microsoft when they're saying that Sony's subscription service continues to thrive, right? So PlayStation users, this is not a platform agnostic play, right? If I want to access Game Pass, I need to be entrenched in the Xbox ecosystem. Doesn't matter about cloud and all that stuff. It's still not structurally strong enough to be an additional service where if I'm owning a PlayStation, I'm not signing up to PS Plus. I'm using my PlayStation to play PlayStation games, but I'm signing up to Game Pass so I can play all these other games. It's still not at a point of critical mass where you're starting to affect other services. Microsoft is correct when it comes to that assumption. I think FTC has given them way, way too much credit when it comes to that. And I also want to quickly talk about this statistic that was brought up from Matt Piscatella, where he says through each of consoles' first 43 months in market, PlayStation 5 unit sales lead those of PlayStation 4 by 8%, while Xbox Series trails Xbox One by 13% and remains slightly behind Xbox 360. This is one of also, just the proof is in the pudding. One of the primary things that we're noticing. This is why these pivots are happening. Everyone who keeps asking themselves, why is it that it looks like Xbox is abandoning their hardware? It's not about abandonment. It's more about you need to pivot. Businesses have to pivot. They have to change in order to survive. And Xbox is firmly in survival mode. Doesn't matter how much Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond want to tell you how great everything's going. Everything's going great. Game Pass is profitable. Everything's, roses and daisies. Okay. Xbox is not really doing well. Okay. Because they fill a specific hole in the gaming market, which is console gaming, and they're struggling to sell consoles. That's not good, which is why they're going for more software and service distribution, more so than anything else. I've said this before plenty of times, where the reason why we're hearing all this talk about how marketing is so bad in the EMEA and is Xbox going to pull out because Xbox is not investing a lot of marketing in Europe. Around the world, PlayStation is a brand name. It's a known brand. Xbox doesn't have that power outside of the United States of America because Xbox didn't put the effort in. And I've said this before, that the only way that Xbox succeeds, especially this late in the game, not only do they have to get way better when it comes to their output of video games, but PlayStation and, Nintendo by extension have to get so much worse. It's just not going to happen. Now, moving on to the next story. Last week, Splitgate 2 was announced via a teaser CG trailer coming to PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X in 2025. A companion app was also released on iOS and Android, which includes a digital comic and collectibles, which can be used to unlock in-game content. So, this was really interesting that they went with the Overwatch play, which is stop working on the game that we created and people are still playing so we can make a sequel. I think it's just really interesting. It didn't really work out super well for Overwatch, so I'm just surprised to see these guys doing it again. I'll be following this. I played the original Splitgate. I thought it was cool. I loved it for its simplicity, and I actually don't like when I look at the sequel teaser trailer that it looks like they're taking that simplicity away. And by simplicity, what I mean is that Splitgate is very much a symmetrical shooter. We all have access to the same portal ability, and really what separates me from you is more positioning, it's more map knowledge, it's more game sense. It might be, weapon choice, what weapon I'm holding, but it's more skill-based, it's more aim-based. Like I said, it's more about game sense. When you start introducing things like, I can see through walls with this button, or this thing I throw at you slows you down, or hey, here's a shield to stop you. It's great to cast a bigger net to get a more casual crowd, but then I feel like you're destroying what I think made that first game so popular. I personally believe that they're going to regret going in this direction. I hope I'm wrong. I never want any game to fail, but I think by approaching it the way that they're doing it, which is sort of not hero shooter, but they call it by going in this direction, not hero shooter. They're saying it's faction based, where you unlock these different abilities and all this different stuff. I think that now you're mudding yourself up with kind of a lot of other shooters that are on the market. And I think what made Splitgate so successful is people were like, finally, something that breaks games down to the core, something that feels a little bit more classic, something that's not about 30 different abilities and walls and shields and things going up and down and cooldowns. It really was about game sense, movement, and skill. And I think a lot of those gamers are going to miss it. And what sucks is that if you enjoy the original Splitgate, it probably is only a matter of time before that game gets completely shut down and Splitgate 2 will remain the only option, which is one of the things that people hated about how Blizzard handled Overwatch. So let's move on to our final story, which is the Concord beta. So Concord's open beta took place this weekend. Last weekend's closed beta peaked around 1,100 players on Steam. Remember, that's really the only platform where we can sort of get a look at what some of these numbers appear to be. So the closed beta peaked around 1,100 players. The open beta that took place this weekend peaked at 2,388 Steam players. PlayStation fans are also not receiving the game very well either, as it currently has a 2.69 rating out of 5 with 6,300 ratings, which is phenomenally low for a PlayStation game. I can't remember the last time I saw a PlayStation published game that had their stars that look like that. If you go to look at every trailer PlayStation's released so far, the negative to positive ratio is insane. It's almost like 90%, 10% thumbs up, 90, 80% thumbs down. I can't remember the last time I saw a PlayStation game that did that. Yeah, it's just insurmountable for me to think of that this is a PlayStation published title, just how badly it's been received. I feel like PlayStation fans are usually like ride or die for anything that this company comes up with. So I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the horrible about this game as I was able to play it over the weekend. I'm going to talk a lot about Overwatch. Overwatch is my sort of go-to multiplayer game, and a lot of people have compared us to Overwatch because they're sort of hero shooters. I think that there's enough differences that I don't think one is a replacement of the other. I think that they're different games. But so let's start with the good of what I liked about the beta. And just to clarify, I did play the beta on PC. So graphically, pretty amazing. I really, really like the look of the game. I think everything looks super duper crisp. I love the what that visual and art team did with the maps. Everything feels, I don't know, very clean, almost, I want to use the word sterile. I don't know if that's kind of like a good way to imply it, but I just almost feel like the visual language and the architecture of a lot of the games, from the walls to the corners, everything feels really good. I think it's really easy to focus a lot on the gameplay itself. It just doesn't feel like the maps get in the way, which I really kind of enjoyed about it. But graphically, really, really amazing. The team did a really good job. I think the animations are also pretty good. The cutscenes for this game are phenomenal. They're probably some of the best I think we've seen in in the industry. Everyone looks really good. Everything looks extremely sharp. The animations are some of the best I've seen, especially the lip syncing animation. I'm always a sucker for great lip syncing animation. I think the writing it was pretty sharp. I think the voice acting is pretty good also in those cutscenes. Now the cutscenes are kind of like a weird point of the game where this team has talked a lot about how important it is, how important the cutscenes are, that even though it's a multiplayer game, I believe they said once a week there will be a cutscene that they're going to use to sort of move the story along. I always personally think that that's not a good investment in multiplayer games because it's kind of difficult to position a game like this and have a lore that everyone can follow, right? So it starts off with you talking about this main crew that they introduced in the premiere trailer. I kind of forgot the name of the crew. I think they're called the North Star crew, something like that. And it's sort of like, you're free gunners. So you're taking on these bounty jobs and you're fighting against other free gunners for that job. Kind of a cool premise. But then, instantly it kind of just falls apart when you see these 5 people that are buddy in the ship. And then, the very next match, you guys are going up against each other. It's also kind of a similar issue that Overwatch runs into, where Overwatch has these 2 main factions, and there are certain characters which are, sort of part of the evil side, and the other side, which are Overwatch, the heroes. But at the end of the day, Mercy is still fighting against Reinhardt, even though as part of the lore and the story, they're on the same team. I feel like what could have worked for a game like this is either A, the bounty hunters are just individuals on their own, and there's sort of a bit of lore for people building a crew, like, so part of the lore is like, I'm a bounty hunter, but, working alone is not working anymore. There's too many bounty hunters. I have to start working with other free gunners in order to succeed. So something like that might be able to work. Or I think another idea that kind of would have been cool, but I understand why a game would want to do it, is you make 16 characters, but you split those characters in half, 8 versus 8. And the characters are visually distinct, but they're mechanically identical. So there's, one guy that operates like a basic first-person shooter character like Soldier 76 that's named Bob, but then on the other side is like a female variant of that, a very, very similar kit, but it's a female named Maria or whatever. So it's and then it's almost like you are sort of picking a faction. You're able to have a bit of like a global, Splatfest sort of war within the lore where, you pick the faction that you enjoy the most via the characters that you choose to pick. Like, I choose to pick the female version of this particular healer instead of like the male version or whatever, because I like that, faction, instead of the other one. So that's kind of a potential solution. But the cutscenes, regardless, really, really cool. But I personally don't think they're worth the investment because, once again, I just don't think that they add a lot. I think that's always been a challenge. I think Hellblade did that really well in terms of how they handled story and lore, but it's a lot easier there because it's a cooperative shooter, right? It's not competitive. Hit detection I thought was pretty good. I thought it was pretty spot on. There was never really a point where I felt like, I thought that was supposed to hit. I thought the hit detection was great. TTK, which stands for time to kill. That was one of the things I heard from a lot of people during the closed beta, which I did not play, that the TTK was too long. They are 1,000%, and I mean 1,000% wrong. I think that people who think that the TTK is too long are probably coming from games like Call of Duty, for example, or even games like Apex Legends, where even though you might be set in teams like 3 players, stuff like that, or even on Call of Duty you're on a team, the way that those maps are built, the way that the pace is dictated, is that there is sort of a lot of running around, right? And the chances that you bump into someone else is a lot more common than in a game like this, or even a hero shooter like Overwatch. And when you create a hero shooter, part of that is you're trying to create a team synergy. And in order to encourage something like that, you want to make sure that the TTK is not too long, because you want to put people into the habit that you want to go with your team. You don't just want to do your own thing. You don't want to play greedy. You don't, if you're going for a health pack and you see someone that's a little bit lower, you're going to let them take it because you know that the only way to succeed is working as a team. And that's the way that the TTK works here. If you're rolling with your team, even if it's with just one player, you can mop up. But if you turn a corner and you see 3 people and you all of a sudden, try to take them on, you're going to get taken out very, very quickly. So I actually thought the TTK was fine. What else was good? Maneuverability was really, really fun. Every single character in this game has a dodge ability. I thought that was really smart where, you shift to sprint. If you double tap shift, they do a dodge ability and the camera sort of zooms out for a little bit of third person. At first, I didn't like that. First, I was like, oh, why don't you just give me in first person, show everyone else my animation, but let me stay in total control. But I kind of liked it because I noticed that when you dodged, me playing on mice and keyboard, I can, swipe my mouse behind me to get like a very quick look, how far, if I'm being chased, how far is everyone behind me? And I can turn right back around and keep running in the direction that I'm going. So I actually got really used to it. But I really enjoy that every single character has it. Now, some have multiple dodges. Some characters have, if they dodge, they reload. So there's some abilities that are attached to dodging. My favorite character in the game, which I'll talk about later on, she's able to dodge 3 times, which I thought was kind of cool. But outside of that, maneuverability, a lot of people have double jumps. Some people have like floatier, higher jumps. Some people are able to actually like sort of jump really high and glide around. Like, I'm sorry, I don't remember the names. I'm going to talk about that in a later segment. The crossbow lady is what I call her. She kind of has the ability where she can jump in the air and sort of glide around. But the maneuverability and the movement that they added to a lot of the characters, I thought was really, really fun. Characters have cool kit synergy. I actually like that. There are just some really interesting kits that they did here. And it reminds me of like Marvel Rivals. When Marvel Rivals was first shown, a lot of us were like, oh, so this is Tracer except as Star-Lord. Oh, this is, that move, that's Reaper's ultimate, but it's a regular ability. Or, I remember Scarlet Witch. Oh, her main weapon of attack is a beam that grabs onto people. Oh, yep, that's Mora. So there were a lot of these abilities when you saw Marvel Rivals. I was like, yeah, you guys copied the homework a little bit too closely. With this game, it really felt like they tried their best to come up with really unique abilities. There's like this guy that's a mushroom where you can drop a mushroom in the ground and at any point in time you can disintegrate and sort of teleport to where that mushroom was. There's some basic stuff like a character is able to put up walls, for example. But there are just a lot of really interesting and kind of cool mechanics that they had. Like one of the main characters that you probably saw in their initial trailer can like run and his skin gets really tough. So he can kind of gain a lot of aggro and take the focus away from the rest of your team. So yeah, there are a lot of really cool things I felt that they did with the kits. Another thing that I liked about the game that I thought was interesting was that abilities are built on cooldowns and limits. This was very, very interesting. In most hero shooters, you have access to special abilities, and those abilities are attached to cooldowns. So, let's say, you're putting up a wall of fire in this game. You press E, and then you can't use that E until 5 seconds go by, right? That's your cooldown for it. In this game, a lot of the abilities have simultaneously a cooldown, and some of them you need to meet a requirement in order to regain it, which I thought was really interesting. So there's the guy, I think his name is Lennox, which is the Peter Quill that people are calling this game, the guy with the revolver, the alien-looking dude. And his Q ability was he can regain his health. And in that one, once you use your charges, I believe that you have to eliminate someone for it to recharge. But then he has this other ability that's a knife that I think you have 2 charges. Once you exhaust those 2 charges, you not only have to kill another opponent, a teammate could also kill them. But once you do that, they drop your recharge. So then you would have to run to their body to recharge that knife ability. I thought this introduced a really interesting dynamic to the game, where it, in a sense, sort of forces you to take the risk or be a bit aggressive with picking that knife back up, because it's a pretty powerful ability. The knife, it's something that you could throw. It has explosive power, and it takes a big chunk of damage out of certain enemies. And a lot of the cooldowns are built that way. Some of them I feel like don't work as well. There's this lady, I'm going to call her the old lady. Once again, I don't remember any of the names. She could put up a wall, but you can't recall the wall. So if for any reason the enemies haven't destroyed that wall that you put up, you have to physically run to the wall and hold down a button to take the wall down. I was like, well, that's kind of dumb. So at some point you might reach a point where you don't have any walls and the game's like, yeah, go pick up your walls. I'm like, that's not very intuitive. So not everything I think works really perfectly, but I thought that it's kind of another thing that you have to keep in mind, right? That you have these abilities on cooldowns, but you have to be a lot smarter with using them. You can't just spam them out as soon as, because that's sometimes what people are expected, something a lot of people do with Overwatch, where it's like, okay, my ability is off the cooldown, boop, let me use it immediately, which is one of the biggest mistakes that you can make. But in this game, what they're telling you is like, yeah, you don't just want to spam out this ability no matter how quickly you can get it back, because some abilities don't even have a cooldown. Some of them are really short. But if I use the 3 stocks that I have of this ability, now I can't use it until I kill someone or I can pick it back up as a pickup after I eliminate them. So I thought that was a really, really interesting dynamic. Same thing with dodging. Dodging also is also on a cooldown. So I actually like that they added that as a dynamic in the game. That it's almost like a lot of minute-to-minute management, which I think is really cool. I think it raises the ceiling a bit. Let's talk about the bad. So a few simple ones. The game needs lever penalties. It's something that a lot of people are already bringing up. I'm sure it's something that this team has already gotten feedback from. If your team leaves the game, there is no backfill option currently. So, I remember one time I found myself in 2 versus 5, and I was like, well, this doesn't make sense for me to keep playing. So I think I just decided to leave. So yeah, the game needs lever penalties. I think the game could use more team-focused modes. They have basic team death matches, one called Trophy Hunt, where you kill someone, they drop sort of like a little tag, and you have to pick that up in order for it to count. And then they do have like a zones sort of game type. I can't remember the name of it, but take over zone A, B, C, hold down the majority for a certain amount of time. But I think they would benefit from stealing some of that from Overwatch. Something like payloads and multiple points that push forward through the map. I think the one issue that I see with that's the one thing that I really love about Overwatch as a hero shooter that I think this game would benefit from, is that when you create maps that work as a path, right, where you're following a set path where you're consistently moving forward while pushing your opponent backwards, it guarantees there's a likelier chance that you're fighting together as a team. It's not 100%, right? You're sometimes always gonna have people trickle in. It's just the nature of multiplayer gaming, but it increases the likelihood that people will stick together, and it creates for a much better team experience. If you don't have friends to play with, or if you don't use voice chat, this is a game that definitely benefits from people working together, especially when you think about, like I said, the kit synergy, not just individuals, but working with other people. I think they could use more modes to sort of, like I said, tunnel people together a bit closer instead of creating a big map where everyone's kind of running all over the place. Definitely needs a practice range. The game did not have one. It's not good to have a game where I have to actually play the game in order for me to understand how a character works. That will forever be frustrating for the lifetime of a video game, where I'm playing a game and it's cool to have new players come in, but it's not cool to that they are being forced to learn how these characters work without a tutorial. So they definitely do need a practice range. Not sure if that's something they'll add in the final game. Better control options. They definitely need more of those. I realized I wasn't able to customize controls for certain gunners. I thought that was kind of weird. Some people brought up that they felt that there should be auto healing. So that's something that's not available in this game. I understand it. I get it. It's a little frustrating. There are definitely some moments where it's like, I wish I was able to remain aggressive, but instead, I felt like I had to run back to get a health pack. There were multiple moments where I saw teammates waiting, camping on a health pack because it was on cooldown. And that's the only way to get your health back unless you have a person on your team that has a healing ability. This game is not role-based, right? So it isn't, like Overwatch where there are certain modes where there's role queues. So there's going to be at least 2 people on my team that can heal me. There's going to be at least one person that's a tank that can take the aggression. In this game, that doesn't guarantee it, but I actually like that. I like that flexibility. I'm not saying that they should do that, but it does create a little bit of frustration where you're like, man, it causes you to not be as aggressive as you wish you could be. So I think it would be kind of cool to even have like some regenerative armor, maybe like even if it's like extra 50 armor or something like that to tide you over so you can continue being a bit more aggressive. But I also don't think that it's something that breaks the game, as I've seen some people saying like on Reddit. Here's an interesting one. This isn't necessarily bad, but I wanted to bring it up. There is no auto reload. I can't remember the last time I played a video game where there was not an automatic reload option. I was very, very surprised to see that. The first character that I tried was kind of the soldier character. I think his name was Teo. And I remember shooting and I'm like, what the hell's going on? Why am I not reloading? And I went to the options. I was like, okay, is there like, for some reason I have to turn on auto reloading? There's no option. For some of the characters, I don't think it's for every character, but some of the characters, it doesn't automatically reload the weapon. And I'm not really mad at that. I think that combining with the ability cooldown management, the way it works, I actually kind of like that. There's a part of it that I really do enjoy that, yeah, you have to be very mindful of the character you're using and paying a lot of attention of how many shots you have left and, switching to another weapon if you need to instead of reloading. I kind of, I think a lot of people are complaining to it is because you're so used to it. And that's kind of another issue with just Concord, but I think gaming in general, so many people are so extremely impatient with being introduced to new concepts. And I hate it. It's so frustrating in this era of gaming right now, where you see it happening with Concord, where instantly people dismiss a game without even playing it, without even trying it. I think it's okay to have initial thoughts about a game. My initial thought for this game was like, okay, it kind of looks a little bit generic. Okay, well, we'll have to wait and see, what it feels like, what it plays like. But I think when it comes to a concept like this, I don't think that you're angry that there's no reload. It's more like you're frustrated because you're so used to the game automatically reloading your weapon for you. I actually think that's kind of cool. And then last of the bad, most heroes need a speed boost. There's too many people who move way too slow in this video game. And I realized that my favorite characters, I started gravitating towards them because they moved very, very quickly. There are some characters here that are just way too sluggish. I don't think it's extremely slow, like to the point of being like laborious. But I think the game would work better if people were able to move a lot faster. So yeah, I think most heroes could use a bit of a speed boost. Now let's talk about the horrible. The horrible is without a doubt the character designs. It's really something we need to talk about, because I think it's one of the primary reasons why this game is not resonating with people. So with this episode, I'm planning on doing a video version. I'm going to try to upload it to Spotify. It'll definitely be on the YouTube channel. So if you want to follow along with the visuals as I go through them. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to go through each of these characters. And we're going to start off with One-Off. So One-Off is, I call him Trash Can. And this is something that I instantly recognize has become a problem for this game. And it's 100% marketing's fault. Marketing has to take the blame for this, which is that they made the mistake of when they introduced this game and they introduced these 16 characters, not doing the work of introducing each of these characters to people. So when it comes to a hero shooter, I think the one thing that you want to do is have people latch onto a character for whatever reason that may be. It could be the weapon, it could be the abilities, it could be the character itself, it could be the personality, the voice, the design, whatever. I think everyone that plays a hero shooter instantly gravitates to someone. But marketing's job is to tell me why I should be gravitating towards people. So what I've noticed from myself and pretty much every person I've seen streaming or talking about the game is no one can remember anybody's names. And that's an important thing when you're creating a hero shooter. That should be a prominent part of the UI, is the name of these characters. Because if not, then people are very, very quick to come up with nicknames. So this guy, I just call him Trash Can. His combat trait is Trash Dispenser. So I'm pretty sure he actually is in the lore a trash can. Now, this is something I thought was interesting. Each each gunner has these traits attached to them, which are like these abilities that are unique to them, which I thought was really cool. So more trash bombs with higher damage. And then his abilities were kind of cool. He has a vacuum and a pressure blaster, but it's not very well explained, which is once again why I think this game could benefit from a practice range and even like shorter tutorials for how to use each character. It's something that Marvel Rivals had as part of their beta, and part of their alpha, and I think it was very, very helpful. So he has a vacuum that can suck and then blast. Not at the same time, which is, I think, one of the mistakes with this character. For whatever reason, they made him weapon swappable. That doesn't make any sense. So his right click is attached to a zoom, but this is sort of a very tanky character. He's very close to mid range. So I shouldn't need a zoom button. So honestly, a change I will make for this character is left click to blast, right click to suck. Ability 1 is an air barrier. And then ability 2 is a trash bomb. And then a lot of these characters have passive abilities. So he has something called a scrap detector, where you can sort of suck in garbage, and then that is what refills your ability of your air barrier. So once again, that uniqueness of like, yeah, you don't get your ability like some other people. You have to kill someone and pick it up. With this guy, you actually have to suck up garbage. So I kind of thought that was a cool little premise. But it made the character confusing. I thought, because he's a tanky character, I thought, okay, I can be aggro. When I used his vacuum, I'm sucking in damage. I'm sucking in projectiles. That's not how he works. So just not very well explained. Next up was Imari. This character is, without a doubt, one of the worst designs in this game. It's just awful. And I just want to preface this by saying I don't like using these terms. I don't like to explain things using this particular type of language because I know how difficult this is. You ask me to come up with a character from scratch and you put a gun to my head, you might as well pull the trigger. I'm going to draw stick figure. I can't do this. Like this is not easy, right? So I always try to be careful when I explain these things, but it's just bad. It's just not good. I brought this up before during last week's episode where I feel like a lot of these characters were built almost in individual bubbles. Like there was not much synergy in the art department. And it's like they weren't sharing ideas to make sure they each had a consistent visual language for a lot of these characters. Some of them feel plucked from different games. Her design is just bad. It's just not really a good design. To be honest with you, I did not like this character, did not like her abilities. First of all, she's extremely slow. She's definitely one of the characters that needs to be increased in terms of her movement. Her gun was not very fun to use. It sort of works a little bit like a minigun. She has an armor generator, which I was confused by because you hold Q to use it, but then she holds it in her hand, and people in that bubble gain armor generation, but then I can't attack while using it. It was very clunky. She could put up a shield, which can block projectiles, which I thought was cool. But then the shield is more individual, so it's not wide enough to the point where you feel like, a little bit like the hero, where you're at the aggro, you're kind of protecting your team. Your team has to be directly behind you in order to be protected. And then at that point, they can't do anything. They can't really, they can't see through my body to shoot the enemies. So I don't understand that. I feel like if you're going to give her a shield, yeah, maybe you don't want to make it wide as wide as Reinhardt, but I think it should be a little bit wider. And passive ability is called Tough as Nails. Incoming body damage is reduced. Next up is Daviers. Another one. Horrible character design. I mean, it is just bad. This looks like, her helmet looks like the thing that you would put like a cake inside of, that thing at the supermarket where you have like what's that cake called? It's like a ring cake, and then you take it off and you wake up the whole neighborhood. That's what it kind of reminds. It looks like Tupperware. Actually, yes, Tupperware. 2 P's. It looks like Tupperware. That's what the helmet looks like. The suit just doesn't really make sense to me. And I feel like that's one of the design things I've noticed is a lot of the clothing and the suits. I guess they were trying to go for like space suit sort of thing, but it doesn't. I mean, we're in combat. None of it really feels combat ready. It just looks like orbit ready, like you're about to do a spacewalk, not really going into combat. It just doesn't really work. Oh, sorry. I see the pronouns are they, them. I said her. Their design doesn't work. So this character was kind of weird. They have a grenade launcher, and then they have this thing where they can splash like oil on the floor, and then you can ignite it to light it on fire. No fun. Really, I just had no fun with this character. They have a grenade launcher. Honestly, just not fun character, and the design is just awful. Next up is Star Child. This is one of the better designs of the game. Very, very much, because you can see the Guardians inspiration, very Drax-coded, I feel, in his writing and his voice and his cadence. But I really liked this character. And what I liked about him is that he is tank in the terms of aggro. He's a big presence, so as soon as you show up, you can really, take a lot of the fire. But what's weird about that is that he doesn't have the sustainability of a tank. So I think that's kind of one of the weird things about this video game is that they don't have set roles, which I respect. But the problem is that this guy is sort of built and feels like a tank, so he moves very slow. If you're not using his Q ability, which is Rage Rush, where you could charge forward, you have Diamond Skin, so you don't take any damage. He has a shotgun, so you really need to close that distance. But sometimes you feel like you're going to be able to take a lot of damage, but he can get melted very, very quickly. There's a disconnect there. He has a power slam attack, which you can slam the ground. I personally didn't like that. I feel like that type of ability, it'd be kind of cool if that was like a special melee he had, and maybe his melee does a little bit more damage. It'd be kind of cool to see him have a different ability. I think it'd be kind of cool to have him have something like, I don't know, he can like very quickly close the gap, maybe like a big leap or something like that, or maybe like a chain where you can pull someone towards you or something like that to help you close the gap a little bit more. Once you use that Rage Rush and it goes on cooldown, you can instantly melt this guy. So I actually liked his design. I thought he was really cool. Baz, I believe is her name. It's either Baz or Base. So I'm going to call her Baz. This was without a doubt my favorite character. It wasn't even close. I do not like the design. Straight up and down, I don't like it. Love the hair. I think the hair is cool. I think the glasses are just absolutely ridiculous. I think that this is a character that whoever designed them thought it was cool, with the red coat, the sort of retro future sneakers. For whatever reason, she's wearing these knee pads, which I think are really out of place for her play style. I just don't think it really works for the type of character that she is. This is another one where I did not like the design, but I honestly can't say that I hate it. But she was my favorite character for several reasons. Number one, she was the fastest. That was very important in this type of game. And her kit works for exactly the type of style that she's supposed to be used for, if that makes any sense. So she's very much a flanker. She's very much get in, get out, very sneaky. You're not the person that's going to be taking on multiple people at once. You're the person that when your team is engaging, you're trying to find a way to flank around to their team. One of her abilities I really like, which is when she crouches, she can track nearby enemies through walls. So she's very much like a patient person. So if you're crouching, you see like two shadows, you might not want to engage immediately. You're going to try to see if you can stay a little bit hidden and maybe go after the person in the back first. So I really like that. She can engage and disengage quickly because she has a double jump, she has a triple dodge, and she has what's called a boosted slide jump. So a lot of movement with her. So I really enjoyed like I felt like there was no reason for me to stop with playing with her. So her main attack are these throwing knives. One thing is what's called a Scorch Star, so it applies a vulnerable debuff to the enemy and increases the damage dealt to them, so that's kind of like your opening attack. And then there's a Lunge Strike, so if you're very close to someone, you hit them with that, it takes out a lot of damage. That instantly goes on cooldown, so it's an ability you can only really use once. If you miss it, it doesn't go off cooldown, which I thought was kind of generous. And another cool thing, which hitting an enemy with a throw knife will track them for a short duration. So you can kind of see them if they go around a corner. I actually like that. But I loved her. I'll be honest. I enjoyed playing with her so much that if this game was free to play, I would play it just to continue playing with her and only with her. Because she was one of the only characters that I felt like I was genuinely having fun with. And I was like, man, I would continue playing this game because there was something about her play style that I feel like I've been missing from a lot of games. Like sometimes in Overwatch, you feel a little bit of that when you play a character like Venture, which is very much like get in, get out type of gameplay, which I really enjoy, the type of play style. But yeah, so much fun to play with her. Next up, Itzy, another character that I don't understand the design of this character. Her personality, I just really don't get it. I don't think it's one of the worst, but I just don't think it's very good. But she was also another great one because, once again, her maneuverability. She moves very, very fast, which I liked. She has a really cool ability where you can throw an orb, and when you click it again, you instantly teleport to that location. Very, very fun gameplay from her. So I think I liked her for the same reason I like Base, which is very get in, get out type of gameplay. Very, very, very quick. She has something called Scramble Rebound, throws chaos energy that will disrupt the enemy's weapon. On contact, it returns to Itzy and supercharges her weapon. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then something called Mirror Image, dodging or using Cosmic Slip leaves behind a decoy. So kind of using it to trick people. I thought she was really, really fun too. Roka, another person, just bad design. It's just, like I said, there's so many of these characters where it's like, there's just not many that make you go, oh my God, I want to play with that person. Like I remember instantly feeling that when I saw Overwatch, even looking at the premiere of Apex Legends, but I'll use Overwatch because that's the game that I played. The moment that they first showed, I was like, Hanzo, I want to play with that guy. The moment I saw Zenyatta, oh my God, a robotic monk that floats around and is Zen-like, just like his name, and throws these orbs. Love it. Transcendence. I'm all about it. I want to play with that. Pharah, super cool armor tech, flying in the sky. Instantly you just attach to a character just based off their look. And in this game, they just completely missed the mark. I think it's one of the reasons definitely why the game is not doing as well. I think these characters. They're so bad. I think that's 100% one of the reasons why people have not latched onto is when you make a hero shooter, you have to make compelling heroes. It's an absolute part of the process. So she runs around with a missile launcher. She has a triple jump, an air dodge. You can hover in place. If you right click with the missile launcher, you can lock on to enemies. I thought that was interesting. She has this ability where she can blast to the ground and deal damage, which I thought was kind of cool. This is definitely what I consider what I call the crutch character, which is this is good for people that don't really play a lot of shooters. It gives you a little bit more flexibility in order to dodge damage. She is a little bit harder to hit than others. So I think that she occupies a good space in this game, but man, that design is bad. Next up is Duchess, which I called her earlier the old lady, because once again, like I said, there's these characters that you are not going to remember their name. They do not do a good job with it. One thing I liked about her is that you dodge, it reloads her weapon. I thought that was kind of a cool ability. She's the one that can construct walls, and then she has something called a Ruinous Blast, project an area that implodes after a delay. Enemies in the blast take damage and become vulnerable. So one cool tactic with her is building a wall behind an opponent. So when they're trying to back up, they instantly hit that wall. You drop that Ruinous Blast, which is like a dome of damage. Really cool. I actually thought this character was kind of nice. I wish the walls, like I said, I said it earlier, she's the one that has to go around and pick up the walls, which I didn't like. I think they did that because in the round-based matches, those walls stay in between rounds, and I guess they thought that would introduce some new strategy. I just feel like it doesn't really add too much. And I also wish that maybe even just like the first wall that she constructs, maybe my team can look through it or something like that. Some sort of advantage outside of just building that wall. Next up is Jabali. This guy, his design, I don't hate it, but simultaneously also just doesn't really call out to me. He's one of the few people that can heal in the game. He throws out an orb that when you pick it up, it heals you for a bit of damage. He also has an offensive orb that seeks out and damages enemies. I thought his kit was just honestly just genuine, just boring. He has called a Seeker Rifle. I just didn't feel like he was very, very fun to play. But in terms of utility, he is one of the few healers that the game has. So yeah. Next up was Teo. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. Jesus Christ. Just horrible design. This to me looks like sketch number 1. Like when you look at any time a character ever gets created and then concept art is released, you see like 25 different versions of that character. This to me is like version 1. This guy said, I'm ready for battle. I'm, throwing on my Astro headset. I'm picking up half a football pad. I'm cutting one of the football shoulder pads off, and that's it. I'm ready to go to war. Horrible design. It's just not good. This guy is such a dork. I mean, look at this guy. Absolute dork. Like, no one wants to play this guy. This guy's not cool. No one wants to play as this guy. This is the basic FPS guy. Every hero shooter has to have the basic FPS guy. He has 2 guns. He can shoot. He can throw a smoke grenade. And then if you right-click, look down your scope, you can see enemies through the smoke. He has frag grenades. So he's very much for people that are not used to hero shooters. I didn't play him much because I just found him very, very boring. It's also kind of weird that he throws up a smoke, but then the moment you land a point of damage on him, his giant red bar shows up. So you can actually still see him through his own smoke, which I thought was kind of interesting. This was definitely one of the worst designs the game has. Daw, Jesus Christ, just another one. Just horrendous. And I say this with the utmost respect. Awful. This guy has like dishwashing gloves on. This guy has like a 2003 North Face bubble on. It's not even North Face. Let's be honest, man. This is probably Puma, Fubu or something. It's just awful design. Another one of the few healers that the game has. He can drop a healing pad on the ground, and he can actually drop a protective dome. So this is actually, he might look like an absolute giant dork, but this guy is actually one of the best defensive players that you can have in the game, because he has a dome that can protect you from projectiles, and then he can actually drop a healing pad. I thought he was fine. I thought his kit was cool. I like that he's built to be that person. I am the support for you, so pretty cool. Kips. This is a design that I actually really like. I like the design of Kips. She is very much the stealthy character. If you dodge, you instantly go into stealth. One thing that I liked was this marked target damaging an enemy from stealth reveals them to your team and resets your dodge. This trait has a cooldown period. I thought that was kind of cool. So if you're able to sneak up behind someone, you melee them. You can melee. You get your dodge back, so you can instantly go back into stealth. So it's almost like you're marking an enemy for your team without actually, hopefully, revealing yourself. Maybe they didn't catch you. I thought that was really cool about her kit. She has what's called a surveillance trap. If someone runs into it, it will reveal them to your teammates. She also has a grenade that can disrupt abilities and damage shields. So she's very much another one that's a little bit like get in, get out. I like this passive ability. When defeated, your assailant will be revealed to your team. So just very much like a, I guess the Sombra of this video game. A lot of intel gathering, I guess. So I thought she was kind of cool. Lark, this is the mushroom. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. Like I said, these designs are just, oof, man, just really bad. Obviously, this guy's a mushroom. Just really, really bad. But I actually thought his kit was interesting. He has sort of a launcher where he launches like these small balls of fungus, I guess, or something like, or plant-like spore thing. And they kind of have a little bit of a homing ability to them. He can drop a pod that he can return to. That ability I actually felt was a bit broken because it comes off cooldown very instantly. So what I was doing with him was I was drop him on a healing pad. And then the moment I thought I was about to die, I would cut around a corner, press Q. He disintegrates into the ground. Really cool effect. And he pops up. I got healed, and then I can almost instantly drop another one. I felt like it was kind of broken. I think that's something they have to address. And then he actually has a good ability with Spore Seed. You drop a spore on the ground, and everyone in that area, it grants haste, which I think faster attack speed or something like that. It might be, and then damage resistance. Any enemies that go through it are slowed. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then when he's in that area, he reloads faster. So I actually like this kit. I thought he was kind of an interesting sort of support character. Haymar, this is what I called the crossbow lady. Without a doubt, one of the best designs in the game. I could do with a different pair of sneakers. I feel like the sneakers breaks up the outfit. But Jesus Christ, look at this design. This is phenomenal. Round of applause for this one. She looks great. She was definitely, without a doubt, my second favorite character because of her maneuverability. When she jumps, you can hover in the air, and then you can dodge in the air, which I really liked. She has what's called the flame shot bow. Love this weapon. It's not a crossbow. It's like a little ball of fire that she loads. It's one at a time, but it is very powerful. I actually felt like there's a little bit too much aim assist on it. I really felt like it's very forgiving in terms of aiming at an enemy, and I thought it was too powerful for it to do that. So I think they need to tweak that number a bit. She has blinding flash where you can blind someone. So it sort of turns a screen white. I wasn't really a fan of that ability when it was used on me. And then she has a wall of fire, which I thought was kind of interesting. But yeah, definitely one of my favorite characters on the game, but I think a little bit overtuned. Lennox. So Lennox is a little bit like the poster boy for the game. Very simple character, but actually really funny. He has two handguns. One's a revolver. One's a heavy handgun. The other one's a revolver. One cool thing about him is that when he dodges, he can reload the weapon, which I thought was kind of cool. He has a throwing knife, and then he can heal himself. So he has a lot of sustainability. I actually enjoyed this character. I thought he worked really, really well. He has this thing called Gunslinger, which is emptying a weapon and quickly swapping to a new weapon will reload the stowed weapon. For some reason, that never worked for me. I don't know if I was doing something wrong, if it was a bug, but it just literally never worked. Now, this is interesting. Another version of Lennox. So this game has something which I thought was kind of interesting that I wanted to talk about, which is they have these variants. So completing certain challenges, you can unlock a variant for a character, which is the same character, a different color skin for that character, and they have a different ability. So you'll notice that instead of reloading when he dodges, he has what's called extended mag, which is extra ammo for both of his weapons. I thought this was really cool. I think it was a great idea. I think it's always good to, when you're adding things that are earnable in a video game or a service title, that it's something that's different, something new, something that's a little bit impactful. So I thought that was really cool. And I wanted to talk about something else where that also applies something interesting to the video game, as I talk about Vale, which is the final character. So Vale is another one that I really 100% enjoyed her design. She was definitely one of the best designed characters in the game, which I think you're noticing the pattern, right? When you look at everyone that was shown in that first trailer, they all have phenomenal art design. And I feel like everyone else was like, put to the back of the room, like for whatever reason, there wasn't enough time to get those Those guys looking cool. Vale, I already forgot her name. Hamar, I think it is, the crossbow lady. Lennox, even, I think the guy's name was Star Child, that big tanky guy. Those are characters that the moment you see them, you're just like, yes, that's my character. That's my girl. That's the one I want to play with. So she is the sniper. I really liked her. She has a very high skill ceiling. If you're not landing headshots, it's not going to work out. But I really like that. She has this ability where she can leap in the air to give you like some really cool shots. She can throw a trip mine that detonates when someone triggers it. I thought she was kind of cool. So on each of these, they have what's called crew bonuses. This is something that they added to the game that, number one, they do not explain. They do not do a good job of explaining. I actually had no idea what this was until I went on Reddit to see how people felt about the game, and someone explained it, and I was like, oh, okay. I don't think the game does a really good job of introducing it to you. These games need to understand that when you introduce a UI, you show someone something new. So around level 5, you unlock crew building. You have to stop me. You have to take control away from me and say, you unlock crew builder, and force me to go through menus. If you don't do that, I'm not paying attention, especially if it's a beta where I just want to get a feel for the game. I want to play for the game. You have to stop me and make sure you explain to me what's happening. So crew bonus is kind of interesting, where it's the attempt from developers to get you to play as many different characters as possible. So you build a crew, which you have your main crew of 12, and then you have 4 backups, because right now there are only 16 characters. Every character has a particular crew bonus. It might be improved mobility. It might be improved reload speed, things like that. The moment you use that character, you unlock that sort of modifier. So, for example, if I use Baze or Baz, her crew ability is, faster movement speed, right? The moment that I then switch to another character, that crew bonus continues. So if I pick the trash can that normally moves really slow, he'll now move a little bit faster because I used Baz before him. So I think you can stack 3 of these per game. They persist between rounds. I might be wrong about that 3 limit, but I think it's only stackable by 3. So it sort of introduces something interesting where, with a character like Teo, for example, I think he improves their reload speed. So you might play with Baz first to get improved mobility, then go to Teo so he can get increased reload speed. And then maybe your third character, which is Lennox. Now with Lennox, I have a distinct advantage because now my Lennox moves faster and he reloads faster. I thought that was kind of interesting. It does provide an extra incentive to, in a sense, force people to learn different players. This is an issue that Overwatch has. We call it one-tricking, where you can only play one character. And it is very frustrating in a team-based game, where sometimes you need someone to play a certain character because it's going to increase your chances of winning. And then that person says, I can't play that. I can't do it. Even within a certain role. So you need a Lucio. We need that speedball. So, hey, we need an Ana. We need a Kiriko. And they say, nope, I only play Mora. It sucks. It's a bad feeling. So I actually kind of like this because, once again, it encourages you to try different people. It also affects the ranked mode in this game. In ranked mode, it's no respawn. And when you win, you cannot use that character again. This is kind of weird because my first initial response was, I don't like it. I don't like that I'm essentially being punished for enjoying a character or being too good with a character. But I don't think it's more about punishing players, more so that it is, once again, trying to teach people to widen their cast, be able to learn multiple players and have a bit more of a stronger bench of characters that you can go to. So it's something that I think I've got a little bit more of a balanced take where it's like, okay, I don't hate it, I don't love it, but I understand it. So that's where those variants show up. So you could, I guess, technically speaking, have 3 Lennox variants. Once you lose one Lennox, you can just pick another one. So it's a little bit of a workaround if you have a particular character that you enjoy using more than others when you go to play the ranked play. Look, overall, how can I put this? I had fun. Okay, I did enjoy my time with it when I was playing with certain characters. But there's just not enough here, personally, for me to purchase this game. Free to play would be different. I'll be honest. If it was free to play, I think I would give it a try. But it still doesn't do enough to get me off of Overwatch. And I think that's where PlayStation is finding a problem with this game. It's just not unique enough. I've brought this up before, where when you are creating a hero shooter, something that is already in a very crowded area in gaming, it's imperative that you do something to stand out. And I think the way that this game stands out is very meta-based. Like, you have to really dig in, right? The things that make this game stand out is the ability synergy. It might be the movement, right? But it doesn't have that hook. It doesn't have that thing that grabs you. And what makes everything so much worse is, honestly, it's the hero design. I do think that the hero design is so bad that at some point, someone in that process, maybe even someone at PlayStation, had to tell this team, you need to go back to the drawing board. Like, yeah, maybe I'm not saying completely rebuild characters and change abilities, but you have to change the design of these characters. It's not working. The designs make or break a lot of hero shooters, because I feel like that's one of the selling points of a hero shooter, is that you latch on to these characters, not just for their abilities, but the easiest way to instantly latch on someone and get them to connect with your video game is showing them a character like, I believe her name was Haymar, once again, the crossbow lady, that when you see her, it's like, she's awesome. I want to play with her. And then you see the weapon, the way it works, and you see the wall of fire, instantly you gravitate, like, I want to play with her. And then you see the absolute dork that is Teo, and you're like, no, I do not want to play with this guy. I do not want to play with the lady with the Tupperware on her head, right? It's just, I think that's definitely one of the primary issues with this video game. The other problem is that this game is no longer just $40, because a lot of people bring up the $40 price point. I think it's healthy and balanced for video games to not for everything to be free to play. I actually like that, there are these games like Helldivers 2, like this one, where it is something that you pay for, but the expectation is it's a lot more feature rich, right? It looks like there is a lot to do. There are a lot of things to unlock. You can unlock gloves and weapon charms and stuff like that. We won't really know how, to the extent, until when the game releases next month. But I think the issue, especially if you're a PlayStation gamer, is that the game is not just $40. If you're not already a PlayStation Plus subscriber, you also have to calculate that through the purchase price, unless you're on PC, right? So it becomes a lot more than just $40. The issue is that this game doesn't do anything unique enough where it sort of chooses you to ignore all the free-to-play games that are out there that are really high-quality games. Once Human right now is pulling in like 150,000 people. It's free. And then you think about other hero shooters like Overwatch, or even something like an Apex Legends, where it's such a high quality that, it becomes very difficult. In order for these games to succeed, you can't just capture new players that never play shooters. You have to take a chunk of people from Overwatch. You have to convince them to play this. You have to convince a couple Apex Legends people, a couple of people from Fortnite. You have to dip into all these player counts, Call of Duty, and get just a little bit from each of them. And it's very, very hard to convince a person to do this. It's even harder to get people to do this, because if you have friends, now you have to convince your friends to not only go out and pay $40, but to abandon the game that you guys play. When it comes to modern day multiplayer, and it's kind of always been like this, let's be honest. There's the game that you play. At one point for me, it was Unreal Tournament. Then it was Medal of Honor Allied Assault. Then it was, Call of Duty 1, Call of Duty 2 on PC. There are these moments in games where it's like, yes, this is my multiplayer game. This is the game that I play. It's very difficult to take someone away from that. You have to do something that's so wholly unique that makes them go, I've never played something like that before. I'm going to go ahead and check this one out. I think it's weird to wish for this game to fail. I don't wish that for this game. I won't be there at launch. I'm sorry. I'm just not paying $40. I think in hindsight, when I look at this game, I think it definitely would have benefited from a free to start mode where maybe you only have access to 3 or 4 characters and you can grind to unlock the rest. And $40 gives you all 16 at once, along with a bunch of cosmetics and maybe a bunch of exclusive stuff. I think this game would have vastly benefited from it. There's no way, I don't know if that's how PlayStation thought, but there's no way this was ever going to be another Helldivers. Remember, what made Helldivers succeed was it was unique. You know, it was a co-op shooter in a sea of competitive shooters. And I think it filled a hole that a lot of people wanted to be filled. So it's just kind of one of those things where I think it's too late. I've seen some people talking about, oh, they should delay it, make it free to play. It's not going to happen. That's not how budgets work. That's not how any of this works. PlayStation is not all of a sudden going to say, this game comes out in August, let's just make it free to play. That's not how this works. It's not going to happen. The only thing they can do now is add this to PlayStation Plus. That's also not going to happen at launch. That would be way too drastic. That doesn't make any sense, especially because of so many people that have already pre-ordered the game. I could see this maybe coming to PS Plus within the year, you know? Yeah, it's tough, you know? And making it free to play, unfortunately, is not enough. I think that the reason why this game is not doing well is it's not doing enough to stand out in a sea of other shooters and hero shooters. But think about it. Right now, Steam should be a really big platform for you. And the game is technically free to play right now. And there's only 2,388 was the peak. I checked today, and I think there were only like 400 people playing. That's horrendous. That is horrible. It's hard to explain how bad that is. It's extremely low for any video game, but especially one that's PlayStation. And this, I'm going to be honest, this might be one of the first times that PlayStation genuinely missed. I constantly praise PlayStation's eye for success. That is something that they have in spades. The Xbox wish they had, which is PlayStation has this core team that has the ability to see a game and go, that's going to work. Let's make it exclusive. Let's throw money on it. Let's get a marketing deal. Let's buy this studio, right? We've seen it so many times with Returnal is a great example. But you saw it even with other third-party exclusivity deals like Sifu and you know some of these other games that they brought over. We saw it obviously happen with Helldivers. It's crazy how much they missed with this. Because remember, this game started as a publishing deal. They went to Firesprite and they said, yeah, we're going to publish your next game, which means that they saw it. And then at some point, people at PlayStation loved what they saw so much, they bought the studio. This is without a doubt the biggest miss that PlayStation has had in a while. It's a rare miss, but it shows you that not everyone is perfect. I, personally speaking, unfortunately do not see a path of success for this game. I really don't wish that on it. I think it has a lot of cool ideas. I think there is fun to be had here. But I just personally don't see a path of success without rebuilding things in this game. And it's weird to say that a lot of this falls on the shoulders of character design. I never thought I'd say that in a video game. But it really shows you how important artists and art design is in a video game. And character creation and personality creation is in a video game. It kind of can be a make or break point. And I think that's really where this is right now. Making this game free to play will not save it. It's just unfortunately not going to be enough. I think this is just an L. I think PlayStation is going to have to take a loss on this one. Like I said, I just don't see the path to success. I think it's crazy to see this knowing now the knowledge that they canceled Twisted Metal, they canceled Last of Us, they potentially canceled their Spider-Man multiplayer where you have the leverage of IP. And then think about it. This comes out in August. There's a chance that Marvel Rivals comes out this year also. That's another huge competitor that you have to go up against as free to play. Yeah, as much as, like I said, I like a lot of the ideas that they're doing, anyone out there that says, oh, they just got to make it free to play, they'll succeed. No, it will still, unfortunately, it just won't be enough. Like I said, the game is free to play right now on Steam, and no one cares. No one's playing it. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of things that I enjoyed about the game, and I never want to see a game fail. I just don't like to see it. I don't, this isn't like, a team created this in 30 days, right? You're talking about years of work and dedication and love that people put into a video game. And, this is why it's so important to have great directors, great producers, people that have those eyes and understand markets and can, easily say like, yeah, if this takes us 3 years to make this, it's going to be too late. Or to say that, yeah, go back to the drawing board. These character designs are horrendous. They're awful. Our characters need to be cool to play. One of the reasons why Marvel Rivals instantly works is because every character is cool from the beginning. They don't have to do anything. That work is already done. The Punisher is established as badass, super cool, right? Venom is already badass, super cool. All you have to do is add them to the video game and make them authentic. That's it. The work is done. More than half the battle is finished. And it's just crazy to think that actually might be one of the things that sinks this game. Oh, and final note before I leave, I almost forgot to mention this. This is another issue with these types of games when they go through this introductory phase and when they go through betas, is that now consumers are now, how can I put this? What's the word I'm looking for? They're now, in a sense, trained to treat these games like investments. Not only time, space, even if it's free, but also money. When you look at a game like this, now, even if there's excitement, even if you find it kind of fun, when you look at what's been happening in the last few years in video games, you realize that this $40 is an investment. And at any point in time, if you look at this, you go, oh my God, a little over 2,000 people on Steam. The ratings on PlayStation are about to be 2.5. It's about to be half of all people did not like this game. This game is probably not going to succeed. And that also is going to affect a lot of purchases. I'm sure there are probably a lot of people canceling pre-orders, even if they enjoyed the game, because to them, it's like, I'm going to pay $40 for a game that who knows, these guys can shut this game down within 2 years. Who knows what's going to happen? Look what happened with Suicide Squad. People put their faith in it. There's no way that game is going to go past whatever 4 seasons they planned. I'd still be surprised if they put out all 4 characters, right? Now, whatever investment you made in Suicide Squad, which was a $70 game, that's gone. And I'm sure there are a lot of people that were excited to play the Suicide Squad. I was one of them. The moment that I tried it, I was like, there's no way I'm giving you guys $70. This game is not going to last. When these games are introduced, they're sold to you as a promise of like years and years of support. It's going to grow. More characters, more heroes, more maps, new modes. And that's part of my investment. And that's part of the $40 I'm giving you for this game. That's also going to affect this game. Is I think a lot of people are starting to understand that these multiplayer games are now investments. And companies don't have the patience. They're not setting up a proper burn rate to hold off. I mean, look at Netflix. Netflix season 1. Doesn't matter how much you enjoyed the show. Oh, it's 97% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. What? Not enough people watched it. We're not going to give it the grace or the time to try to gain a bigger audience. Canceled. And that's where video games are right now, where they're almost seen as an investment. If it's free to play, the investment then becomes really close to zero, especially if you're on PC. You don't have to pay for multiplayer. When it comes to console and paying something out of pocket, $40, you have to think about the future. And I think that's going to affect a lot of purchases. Hot releases for the week. July 22nd, we have the new Denpa Men coming to Switch. July 25th, we have Earth Defense Force 6 coming to PC, PS4, PS5. And then July 26th, we have One Piece Odyssey coming to Nintendo Switch. Time for us to wrap it up. The stories we didn't have time to get to. Former Chibi Robo developers announced a spiritual successor called Co-Robo. Kickstarter campaign for the game will launch on July 22nd, with the aim being to release the game on PC and consoles if enough funding is achieved. This is kind of crazy to me because it looks exactly like Chibi Robo. If I showed this to anyone, they would instantly go, oh, cool, Nintendo's making a new Chibi Robo game. I'm kind of surprised that they will be so blatant with it. This kind of continues this trend that I've talked about in the past of other companies coming together to release Nintendo games that Nintendo's not interested in anymore. This one's almost too close. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, Nintendo should sue, or I think they should be sued. I hope that doesn't happen. I don't think it will happen, but man, this is like way too close in my opinion, especially putting Robo in the title. Certain fans believe a job opening at the Coalition could hint at a future PS5 release for Xbox's Gears of War E-Day. The listed position will, quote, help build the multiplayer online experience of the game, including in-game economies and commerce, session management, player statistics, user-generated content, and matchmaking. It mentions prior experience working with online platforms such as Xbox Live, Steam, and PSN. Personally, I don't think that that's what that means. I think that if you're hiring someone from a job, you'll want someone that has knowledge of multiple infrastructures. I don't think that's what that means. You know, if I'm hiring someone in Adobe as a designer, or like to work on Premiere Pro, I think it'd be kind of cool if you had knowledge of how DaVinci works, right? I don't think that means that you're building a product that I'm also going to bring to DaVinci. I don't think that's really what's happening here, but I think it's more of a symptom of a larger problem, which is Xbox needs to be more proactive of coming forward and saying, no, that's not what's happening. But at the same time, they've lost so much trust from consumers. There's literally no reason for anyone to rule out that something like this would ever happen. Xbox opened that door, and people are more than happy to look through it into potential futures. Overwatch's newest support hero, Juno, was unveiled and available to play over the weekend. I actually did not enjoy this character. I sort of felt like this is a character, and I think that this is kind of a bit of an issue with hero shooters, where sometimes I feel like heroes are added just to boost player counts, and I feel like aren't really added to actually add anything unique to the game. I felt that way when I saw a character like Lifeweaver. I think I instantly, or even Venture, I instantly saw their place. I instantly saw how they can change a few things in the game. I didn't feel that way with Juno. She is kind of fun. I like her maneuverability, but she didn't instantly click with me. Maybe I need to just spend more time with her. But love the character design. And finally, last week, Capcom announced a re-release of 2003's SNK vs. Capcom SVC Chaos. It features 36 fighters, including secret characters from the arcade version, a hitbox viewer, and rollback netcode. The game, which immediately dropped on Steam and will hit GOG, PS4, and Switch July 22nd, with absolutely no mention of an Xbox release. This one's even funnier, because this game was once an Xbox exclusive. I believe it was in America. So it was originally only available on the original Xbox. So I find it's really ironic how Xbox is the one that's missing. This continues the trend, and I feel like it furthers the theory that there has to be something wrong. Well, not something wrong, but Capcom probably just did the math. And for whatever it's going to cost to get, some people call it, I think, the MT framework, whatever it is to get this running on Xbox's systems, the math just doesn't work out. If the math worked, it would be there. A lot of people are blaming Microsoft. I think at this point, Microsoft kind of needs to come forward, and either they have to be very plain in their language and say, look, we don't make the decision, it's up to Capcom. Go talk to Capcom. Or Xbox needs to be more aggressive, and they should have done this years ago. Paid a visit to Capcom and say, guys, what's going on? Why are we not getting these video games? Is there anything we can do? I felt the same way. I think I remember back when Baldur's Gate 3 happened, when Baldur's Gate released, and PlayStation by default had it as a console exclusive, I went, bro, if I'm Phil Spencer, I'm picking up the phone immediately. I'm together a team that's flying over to the studios tomorrow. I'm putting you on the PJ, okay? Go over there. You're not leaving until you help them figure out the problem. It happened again with Wukong. Now Wukong is saying, oh, we're having problems. Now because of that, I know there's a conspiracy that PlayStation paid them, but the only facts that we know is what Wukong, the developers, have said. They said that the Xbox version needs more time. Same thing. I'm sending a team down there. Go help them out. Figure out what's wrong. This isn't outside of the norm for companies to do that. They need to do that a lot more. Now, we have a couple of shout-outs before we go. Shout out to EA Sports College Football 25. They've seen 2.2 million unique players during its 3-day early access period, which is extremely high. There's also been some unconfirmed rumors that Xbox Series S reached the highest amount of sales it's seen since launch. Pretty amazing stuff. Also, shout out to Bethesda Game Studios workers. More than 200 developers have unionized with the Communication Workers of America. Shout out to Ironwood Studios. Pacific Drive has surpassed 600,000 copies sold. Shout out to Amazon Fallout TV series. They earned 16 Emmy nominations. And finally, shout out to NetherRealm's mobile team. At least 50 members of staff have been laid off, so hopefully they land on their feet soon. Make sure you subscribe to Camp Koji on your favorite podcast platform so you can listen to it on the go. And if you already are, please leave us a review. It helps more than you know it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Please follow us on Twitter and YouTube at Camp Koji for future updates. Once again, I am Joel, and I will see you all next week.